Hey everybody, it's Evan with the Grainiac. So today I'm going to show you how to make some smoked beef steak, not jerky. Start with an eye of round. That's always my choice. You can either get it denuded, that means trimmed already, or you get it and you can trim it yourself. I'm figuring a 7-pound eye. I'm going to trim down to a little over 5. So 5 teaspoons of salt, half of that in sugar, a little bit of soy sauce to taste, spice to taste. And I don't want to give you an exact recipe besides salt, sugar, and cure. Those are your 3 mains, the things that you want exact each time. And then after that, just have fun with it. I put in horseradish sometimes, put in some lemon juice. Along with the soy sauce, if I'm doing the dehydrator or the oven, I always put in liquid smoke. Your friends and family will never know the difference. They think that you put it on a smoker. Make sure you stick to 1/8 of a teaspoon per pound of cure. You can actually poison people if you use too much. If you're going to dehydrate it and you're going to eat it within a week or 2, you don't even need pink cure in it. And this is the eye of round. And this is what professionals use. I've made literally thousands of pounds of beef jerky working at a butcher shop, and we always used eye of rounds. Personally, I've used skirt steaks, leaner cuts of meat, chuck, and I just like the eye better. And that's what's going to give it more of that steak flavoring. And what makes it smoked beef steak and not jerky is the thickness of your cut. You don't want to do a real thin cut where you can see light through it. I'm cutting these pretty thin, but still thick. And you'll see what I mean when I get to actually cutting the meat here. You'll see this is an extra bonus tip. Leave your trimmings as big as you can. I'll show you something when I put it in the dehydrator, what I use those for. But trimming it up, getting most of the fat off. Make sure it's real important to have a sharp knife when you get to this part. And cutting it in half. I don't want my pieces way too long. See how nice and lean that is? That's what you want in your beef steak, smoked beef steak. It's a nice lean piece of meat. So you look at that. The longer you have it in a marinade or a brine, the more tender it's going to be after you cook it in the dehydrator or the oven. See, nice little slices. They're not paper thin. They're going to be thick little slices here. And I say leave it at room temperature if you're just going to cure it for 6 hours. But if you are going to do it overnight, then put it in the refrigerator. Otherwise, keep it at room temperature. It'll penetrate a lot better. And the cure will do its thing. The liquid smoke will penetrate better too. So as you can see, I'm leaving these a little bit thicker. And when you dehydrate, you do it for about 6 hours, same as you would normally. It's going to be a little bit more bendy when you're done. It's not going to be smacking on a table and you hear it thud. You're going to be able to, it's going to be a little bit, like I said, more bendy, more flexible. But that's what's going to give it that more of a steak flavor. When we'd sell beef jerky out of the meat shop, we had to call it smoked beef steak because it had more moisture in it than beef jerky does. So the USDA had us label it as smoked beef steak. So there's a reason on their end why we do it there too, because then the allowance for moisture is higher. I added a little bit of water so I can mix that up. You always want to mix your seasonings first to give your cure a chance to penetrate the meat before your liquid smoke does. So that's a good tip too. If you put in a liquid smoke, it's going to compete with the cure. So now I put in my liquid smoke. Make sure to mix. You want to get that on everything and you want to get it uniform. And once it's all mixed up after a few minutes, pat it down, cover it with parchment paper so nothing can get in, and then I throw it in the oven without it on. So here's the trick. Use your trimmings for dog treats. You don't even need to season them. You don't need to cure them. In fact, you don't want to season them and cure them. But I put this on the bottom rack. I let it dry with the rest of it, and it makes a delicious, healthy dog treat. So mix it up one last time, make sure everything's well coated, and lay it out on the screens. Make sure they don't touch, laying flat as possible. I'm telling you, if you haven't done strips of jerky like this, if you've used hamburger or ground meat, you've got to try the eye of round. I mean, it's what professionals use. It's what we've made jerky out of for years and years. Family recipe. Made a whole business based off of the beef jerky. That's all we sold all over the country for 25 years. And if you want more tips and tricks, I'm going to start playing around with different flavors, different techniques. I've done this for so long. It's kind of fun to just play around with different kind of seasonings. So 6 hours at 165, but again, all dehydrators and ovens are different. Some of them will dry out a little bit quicker than others, and that's fine. I would just keep an eye on it, and when the meat begins to sweat, that's a good time to kind of pull it, throw it in a clean container, put it in the refrigerator for a while, or let it sweat out in the bowl for a little bit. It'll dry out a little bit more. And the nice thing about this is if it doesn't dry out enough, if you take it out of the fridge in a few hours and it's a little too bendy for you, you can always throw it back in the dehydrator again for a little bit. A few on the top rack there. Again, make sure it's not touching. So this is 3 hours in. I'm just flipping the jerky. Again, I'm not even necessarily sure if I have to. I just want good marks on both sides. There it is, finished product. A little bend to it. They're not going to be stale. They're moist. But the cure went all the way through, as you can see. And then I vacuum seal them on my Intrige. It's a pretty neat little vacuum sealer that I have. I do 1/4 pound packages. So I just keep them in the refrigerator just in case. Otherwise, they're cured and you're vacuum sealing them, so they should be good for a long time. If you learned anything, if you like these kind of videos, make sure to subscribe, like, get notified. Thank you for watching, and talk to you all soon.